Hi friends, it's Sajid. So the summaries at the back of books are something we don't really talk about that much on BookTube, and why would we, right? I feel like sometimes they tend to be a bit too vague and don't really give you an accurate idea of what the book is about, and other times they're so long that by the time you finish reading it, you don't need to read the damn book. But sometimes you find that perfect summary, whether it's well written or just very plain, that really does encapsulate the idea of what the book is about and represents it so well. And for me, a really great back summary is the summary of In the Country by Mia Alvar. I have been struggling to review this book, and yesterday when I tried to make this review video, I was reading the back summary and I thought to myself, you know, I'm going to try something new. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read you the back summary, and then I'm going to go through each part of the summary and talk about that aspect of the book. And I feel like that would allow me to give you a really holistic and accurate portrayal of what this book is about. So very quickly, I will just read the back summary for you. In these 9 Globe-Trotting tales, Mia Alvar gives voice to the women and men of the Philippines and its diaspora. From teachers to housemaids, from mothers to sons, Alvar's stories explore the universal experiences of loss, displacement, and the longing to connect across borders, both real and imagined. In the Country speaks to the heart of everyone who has ever searched for a place to call home, and marks the arrival of a formidable new voice in literature. So let's start. In these 9 Globe-Trotting tales. This is a collection of 9 short stories that focus on the experiences of Filipino people both in the Philippines and its diaspora. Some of the stories are set in the Philippines, while some are set in the United States and the Middle East. And I was actually pretty surprised to learn that there was a huge Filipino presence in the Middle East during the 1970s. Apparently during some sort of political and economic upheaval, a lot of them moved to Saudi Arabia and Bahrain to work and send back money for their family. And I wouldn't have learned that if I hadn't read this book. So you see why reading diversely is important. From teachers to housemaids, from mothers to sons. So this line I think really gives ode to the fact that this collection really does explore the experiences of not just one type of Filipino people, but a whole bunch of people, privileged and poor, male and female, mothers and sons. Hence there's, like, I would say, some level of intersectional representation in these stories. One great example of this would actually be the story called The Virgin of Mont Ramon. This is a story about a rich boy who is born without legs and lives his life in a wheelchair, and he sparks up a friendship with a girl who is literally dirt poor. I love this story because here you had 2 people who were from 2 completely different worlds, but they were still able to connect based on the shared experience of being rejected and being the outcasts. So I want to skip ahead to the part where it says, In the Country speaks to the heart of everyone who has ever searched for a place to call home. I think that is quite an important line because this entire book, even though the stories are quite different, all do have the same underlying themes, and all of those themes are somewhat based on this dynamic of questioning what is home. Is home the people that you love, that you associate with? Is it the place that you're from? Is it the things that constitute your past experiences? Is it the place that you are now living in, that you have made your own community or your own sense of comfort in? And I think this book really does show you that there's no rigid answer to that. I'm someone who has questioned this as well, because even though I've lived in the same place my entire life with the same people, I've always wondered, like, if I move somewhere else and settle somewhere else, would there still be, like, would this still be home? Will that be home? Will it be a combination of both? Is home the people that I love and that I'm with, or is home the place that I'm from? Is it a combination of those 2 things? So I don't know if that was Alvar's intention when she was writing this book. Probably it was, but even if it wasn't, it definitely did come across that way. So going back to the part where it says, Alvar's stories explore the universal experiences of loss, displacement, and the longing to connect across borders, both real and imagined. First of all, loss. Loss and tragedy and death and grief play a very integral role in this book. Not in all of the stories, but in quite a few of them, the main character would have experienced some sort of loss in their life. A person that they love died, or even if they didn't die, they changed, or they don't see them that much anymore. And it really kind of fits into the theme of home, because as I said, part of what constitutes the home is the people that you live with and the people that you associate with and the people that you love. So when those people go, or they change, or they die, part of your home has left. And it really kind of puts the individual in a situation where even though they are home, or where they have always been, they're not really home, because part of what meant home to them is no longer there. And then with displacement, that makes a lot of sense, especially for the stories that took place outside of the Philippines. And that's where I think the importance of past experiences come into play, because in stories especially like Esmeralda, about a woman who's living in New York, there was this real emphasis on the past and her reflection of her times in the Philippines and how she saved her brother, and how her brother is a very important part of her memory, and that kind of influences her behavior in her new environment. It influences the way that she sees the world in her new environment, and it really does kind of show that where you come from will always be a part of you wherever you are. And that theme of displacement also comes with this sense of nostalgia in all of the stories, even the ones that take place in the Philippines. This kind of longing for where you are originally from or where you want to be. This longing for home and your family and your friends. This longing for comfort in whatever new situation that you are. And the longing to connect across borders, both real and imagined. This was a bit difficult for me to think about, but when I read that line, I automatically just think about the fact that, first of all, the Filipino people who are living outside of the Philippines still have this connection with their homelands, and also there is this connection with the people in the homelands to their relatives that are living in the foreign countries. One of my favorite stories from the collection was called A Contract Overseas. That story, probably my favorite because it was the only one that actually made me cry in the end. It was about a girl whose brother moved to Saudi Arabia and he is supporting their family from there. She's very close with her brother, and he actually kind of relays some of his experiences, which she writes because she's a writer and she's trying to make up stories about life in Saudi Arabia as a Filipino immigrant. And the way that she connects with his experiences to me is really powerful, because she hasn't experienced it, she doesn't know what it's like, but at the same time she's so fascinated with it to the point where she wants to write about it and she wants to express it through these fictional stories that are coming into her mind. And marks the arrival of a formidable new voice in literature. Mia Alvar's voice is definitely formidable. I don't know what the hell that means, but I'm sure it's a good thing. She doesn't tell all of the stories in the same way. She does experiment with different writing techniques and structures. While I think a good chunk of these stories were written in first person, some of them were written in third person. One was written in second person. That was the same Esmeralda story. It was very interesting because I had never prior to that read anything in second person before. But one of the most fascinating stories was Shadow Families, because that was written from a first person perspective, but from the first person perspective of a group of people at the same time. So it's about these women who all live in Bahrain, and there is this new Filipino girl who comes into their neighborhood or into their circle, and she's very vague, they don't know what to think of her, and they become very infatuated with her. So it was narrated by all of these women at the same time, so they would say, we did this or we did that, instead of I or me. And whenever one of these women were referred to individually, they were referred to as in the third person. So I found that to be a very interesting way of writing it. At first, I was a bit confused, but then after a while, I ended up appreciating it, because that story for me really did kind of emphasize the relevance of a collective or a group perspective. And Alvar doesn't really just experiment with the writing styles and techniques. She also tries different structures in the way that she writes. So for example, In the Country, which is the title story of this collection, it was written in a way where you were given a present situation and you don't really know what happened, and then there was the past, so you were constantly going back and forth from the present to the past, and as time progressed, as the story progressed, you caught up to it and you understood exactly how what happened. And even though all of these stories are so different and unique in terms of the people, the way that it's written, the structure, the kind of situation that it's revolving around, the level of emotion invested into it, Alvar still manages to make all of them give you the same feeling. She still manages to weave those themes of loss and nostalgia and displacement into all of her stories and all different aspects of the characters' lives. Overall, these stories were very powerful and they did stick with me. I'm still thinking about each and every one of them. I think I will give this collection a solid 4 out of 5 stars. It just doesn't really feel like a 5-star read for me. It's also a debut, so you can't really expect it to be 100% perfect, but it is definitely one I think is still worth reading. If you're looking to get into some more short fiction or short story collections, or you're looking to start getting into that, this is one that I would highly recommend. Also, if you want to diversify your reading and maybe read some more Philippine lit or learn more about the Philippines in general and the experiences of people, I'm just going to end the review right here. In the comments down below, let me know if you've read In the Country and if you have any thoughts on it. Also, if you'd like to share recommendations for short story collections or Philippine lit. And that's it. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely day, and until next time, inshallah, keep reading.